by the people is very much in line with the type of information the court may properly consider for the purposes of sentencing. Mr. Case, whenever you're ready, we can begin with your presentation. Besides requested 1 hour each, I gave you an additional period of time, so I'm going to expect the parties to adhere to the 1 hour on each side, because I'm going to need time too to make whatever comments I need to make and formulate my thoughts.
Well, Your Honor, I misunderstood. I thought we would be going second.
Nope.
So we can start with Ms. Peters and we'll get.
No. Ms. Peters goes last. So the way this works is you make your sentencing argument, then the people make their sentencing argument, then I hear from Ms. Peters, then I issue my sentence.
All right, but we have other witnesses who want to address the court. And
sure.
We thought we'd be allowed an hour, and I told them we'd be starting at 11 because I thought the people were going first. They're all close by, so we can get them here pretty quick.
Okay.
So I apologize, I wasn't ready. I just didn't know the order of things. My fault.
Okay, let's get him here.
All right.
And then can you make your argument otherwise? Can we be productive with our time? Because
sure.
This is it.
While I'm getting the witnesses, Mr. Administrator will make the argument.
Very well. Mr. Administrator, whenever you're ready, sir, you can begin.
Thank you, Judge. May it please the court, counsel. Judge, thank you for the opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation. We've done so. Believe that it's thorough and complete. Interestingly, though, it does not make a recommendation. I believe that the statutory fact...
And just to let you know that they don't make recommendations in this jurisdiction. I know that they do that in the 9th, but they don't do that here in the 21st.
Sure, I get that. Nonetheless, I would just indicate that as you've indicated to us just moments ago, that you've reviewed that and you've reviewed all the other sentencing materials that we provided in an effort to show our client is one who is worthy of some consideration relative to probation. I recognize the fact that this has been a highly politicized and volatile and publicized prosecution. However, I would indicate, Judge, that the statutory factors that are in play here relative to her qualification for probation, I believe mandate such a treatment. I would indicate also that our client, Ms. Peters, has been, as you indicated, free on bond. She has, throughout this prosecution, has traveled many times out of state. As the court required, we filed a notice of travel. In each of those instances, she complied with the court's orders. She's here today. She's always been in court when required. And I would indicate that she is absolutely not a flight risk. I'm sure the people have some dispute relative to that consideration. However, I would indicate to you that she is not, and she is certainly a person that would merit probation as opposed to any sort of sentence of incarceration, be that locally or in the Department of Corrections. Not sure. I just have one moment.
Sure, take your time.
Is Pastor Brian here? Mm-hmm. Where is he? In the corner. As Mr. Case indicated, our time is short. We have several people who'd like to speak on behalf of Ms. Peters. I'd like to start with Pastor Brian.
Very well. Come on up.
Thank you.
Please to the lectern. If you could state your name and then spell your last, please.
My name is Dave Bryan, B-R-Y-A-N.
What would you like to share with me, sir?
I'm sorry?
What would you like to share with me?
Oh, well, I would like to share my observations of Tina Peters. Let me say this, I've pastored the Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, California for 38 years. There we have done extensive work in community impact and rehabilitation. I've overseen drug rehabs, including the Feather River Men's Center, the Faith Project, the House of Ruth. We've done those kind of things for 40 years, which has given me a lot of experience being in and out of the courts. We often go to court and give opportunity for people to come out of the penal system based on our judgment that the penal system serves neither them nor the state. And we put them in programs at the Church of Glad Tidings and the Embassy of Heaven, and have done that very successfully for very many years. It has given me a great deal of experience in working with people. And I've known Tina Peters since she entered the political realm in Colorado some years ago, and have followed her very closely. That's caused me to reach out to her years ago, invite her to the Church of Glad Tidings, where she's well loved and has visited us several times. And watching the case as it's unfolded here in Colorado, it's been obvious that there is a great divide on the issues. Of course, this case, because of who Tina Peters is not just followed here in Mesa, but is being followed internationally. And there's a wide disparity in views as to what happened and why, and it surely will be followed up in subsequent trials and become even a bigger hairball for the state of Colorado and for this office. But I would like to suggest that we can be a peacemaker in this whole thing by offering a solution to you and to the whole state of Colorado to remand her to our custody in Northern California. We've done this for 40 years. We're very able to do that. We have facilities on a 40-acre campus to take care of that. One thing that is exceedingly clear to thousands of people who are viewing this case is that it serves no purpose for Tina Peters to spend even a single day in custody. She is not a threat to the community. She's not a threat to the state. She's never been a threat to any other human being. And it could only smack of political vindication and cause the divide over this case to be wider and wider. However, for her to be put on probation in California would solve lots of those problems. It'd certainly be welcomed by us. I think that the case has been made very strong that the state of Colorado is not interested in Tina Peters or her political philosophies or her value system, but you could have a solution here, Your Honor, that really calmed the storm in many, many cases. It's my observation that the storm is just really getting started with this sentencing, particularly if it's seen to be political vindication or anything that is above and beyond just a simple, straightforward case. And so I just would like to recommend that to you. We would be more than happy to take this big, audacious hairball to California, and I could guarantee the success of that. Again, we've done it before many times. It's a great solution in terms of putting this behind you and behind the state of Colorado. Tina Peters has learned her lesson. She'll not be involved in the state of Colorado politics anymore. And I think it could be a win-win solution. And so I would just like to submit that to you as a possibility.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we have three more lay witnesses to
Sure.
address the court. Dallas Schroeder's on the way.
Okay.
And we've called, we're trying to reach Dr. Frank and Christine Chaveras. So I'm pretty sure we can have them here before our time's up if the court would allow us to do that. Ms. Peters, of course, is ready to,
Right, I don't want her to have to go before the prosecution, so I'm gonna let her, as I would typically do, always do.
all right,
Speak before me, the last person to speak before me. So what I can do, because you don't have your witnesses ready, is see if the people had witnesses they intended to call. Anyone speak for the people, and then I'll let you make your argument after the witnesses for the defense have had a chance to get here and speak. So if there's just people who wish to address me, let's see if we can get them out of the way now, so that way we're not sitting in silence.
Thank you, Judge. First, the people would offer Gerald and Wendy Wood.
All right, Mr. and Miss Wood, come on up. Come on up here to the lectern, please. Let's just go one at a time if you wish to speak individually. So then, Miss Wood, state your name, please, and spell your last.
My name is Wendy Wood, spelled just the last, W-O-O-D.
Go ahead, ma'am. What would you like
Okay.
to tell me?
Thank you, Judge Barrett and DA Rubenstein, for affording us the opportunity to speak today on behalf of my family and as a private citizen of Mesa County. I'm very thankful to our law enforcement who have handled this case with honor and care. Thank you to the DA's office for your thorough and carefully executed investigation. And thank you to our Mesa County Commissioners Janet Rowland, Cody Davis, and former Commissioner Scott McGinnis, who had to step up to help cover our clerk's office, and to the employees there who were left picking up the slack at a very stressful time 3 years ago. I have composed this statement in my head 50 different ways and with varying degrees of emotion over the past 3 years. I don't stand here today to be seen as a victim of Miss Peters, although we were victimized by her. I stand here as someone who serves as a witness to the chaos, the injury, and the twisting of events that happened in Mesa County and in our lives, as well as using my voice to speak the truth because it truly does matter. As I stand here today in this courtroom, I am saddened that Miss Peters let it get to this point. I'm truly grieved to see the 68-year-old woman who often uses the name of God as her guide continue down this pathway of unrepentant and callous disregard toward anyone in authority without humility. I am grieved that Miss Peters did not stop at any of the red lights along the way and say, "I'm in over my head, I made a mistake, help." Instead, she took the bait, the idea of the feather in her cap, where the end justifies the means. Our family was the means. I am appalled that Sharona Bishop had no qualms about using Miss Peters, my husband, and others along the way, whom she treated as pawns to move around on her chessboard, also while using God as her coverall. God sees through Sharona Bishop, though, and he knows the truth, and may he judge rightly over her. I am utterly amazed that still to this day, after the trial, after the guilty verdict, after their own admission of guilt, neither one of these women have shown any remorse for the people they have victimized, nor offered any apology to anyone. I grieve for the people who were deceived and follow a woman who changes her version of the truth every time she goes on air. Truth matters, Miss Peters, the actual truth. I have grieved for our public servants, our elected officials, including clerks across this state, and the private citizens who truly care about election integrity, who uphold the rule of law, who have had to endure ridicule and public slander. I am sickened that death threats have been leveled at some of the people in this courtroom here today. Has Miss Peters denounced any of those? I have grieved for our children, 3 of whom are in this courtroom today, who endured the shock and trauma of having our homes searched for hours on 2 separate occasions, which resulted in the loss of our computers, tablets, and phones, most of which have yet to be returned to this day. I carried the heartache of the concern they had that their stepfather could go to prison. I have hated that Miss Peters and Miss Bishop have betrayed so many of my friends, some of which were friends with both of them at one point. Personally, I endured a public filleting where accusations were pointed at me and lies were spoken about me and my family in a political forum, including the insane idea that we were working covertly with the FBI. As a pastor, I had to explain to our congregation why our names would be in the news and the public scrutiny that we and possibly our ministry would be under. Some of our congregants are here today showing their love and support. I have grieved the most for my husband. Jerry is one of the most honest people I have ever met. He passionately loves this country and is deeply burdened by the concern for our country's elections, that they be conducted with honesty and integrity. It was both shocking and heartbreaking to me to hear Miss Peters and Miss Bishop slanderously use Jerry's name to destroy his reputation in national and local interviews simply because they saw him as a tool rather than a human. Miss Peters claimed to have no knowledge of ever meeting Jerry, but later changed her story to claim my husband was in on this ridiculous scheme from the beginning. The implication that my husband would willingly hand over his life, sacrificing his family, our ministry, his livelihood, to someone he had barely met made me sick. It was gut-wrenching to think there were people who, never having met my husband, might think these awful things about him. I want you and those listening today to know about the hours my husband spent studying the 3 reports generated by Miss Peters' people with the intent of finding the truth. Jerry spent our own money to investigate the voter rolls and sat down with the clerk's office and one of our commissioners on more than one occasion to investigate every single anomaly that came up from the 2020 election rolls. He has worked as a software engineer for 33 years. He knows what he's doing, and he knows internet security. And even at the risk of being wrong, he was willing to investigate to find the truth. This is who Jerry Wood is. He is not a braggart, a fool, or someone who was ever seeking notoriety. He was and still is a patriot who loves God, country, and the truth. Today is the eternal biblical feast day called Trumpets. It's a day in which the warning shofar is blown. It is a day which calls for judgment to the unrepentant, but deliverance to the repentant. My prayer for Ms. Peters is that she chooses to be among the repentant. I will end this with the declaration in Hebrew and in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Dayan Amet. Blessed are you, King of the universe, the true eternal judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, please state your name and spell your last.
My name is Jerry Wood, or Gerald Wood, legally, and last name is W-O-O-D.
What would you like to share with me?
Thank you, Judge Barrett and D.A. Rubenstein. Thank you for giving me the time to speak freely about the impact of the crimes Ms. Peters has committed against us. When I was approached by Sharona Bishop and Tina Peters about helping them preserve records, I operated in good faith. But in return, they, in league with others, lied to me, stole my identity, and committed crimes in my name. These crimes, using my identity, put me and my family in jeopardy under the microscope of investigation. To this very day, I appear to be still under investigation by the FBI, all because of what Ms. Peters did to me in the pursuit of her own fame and fortune. She caused my name to become national news linked to her crimes, and she has repeatedly dragged my name through the mud with her lies and direct slander, putting any future job applications at risk when any potential employers do a simple web search on my name. My family has endured 2 multiple-hour incidents where search warrants were served. We were prisoners in our own home for that time, while every inch of our home was searched, and $12,000 to $15,000 of equipment and paperwork was seized. Most of these things have not been returned, and we may never see them again. Her selfish and willful disregard for anyone but herself has placed my current job and my reputation with my customers in danger. I work in the software security industry, designing, writing, and supporting software that millions of people across the world depend on daily for their life and safety. Thanks to Ms. Peters, anyone who searches my name will be faced with a flood of her slander and security breach allegations. As a result of Ms. Peters' actions, my wife and I, who are pastors of our church, stood in front of our congregation when this all first blew up to tell them that my name was national news and I was completely innocent of the allegations. We are fortunate to have a church family that knows us well and did not believe the news stories at the time, but Ms. Peters' lack of care for anyone else put our entire church ministry at risk. During this trial itself, I was again subjected to false evidence that was presented in an effort to discredit me to the jury, community members, and national news. When I left the stand, Ms. Peters' own attorney committed fraud for all to see, attempting to illegally serve me with a blank subpoena form, claiming it to be valid service. Time and again, Ms. Peters has appeared on camera to slander me and attempt to drag me into the pit with her. She has never, not once, shown an ounce of remorse for the things she has done. Instead, she continually doubles down on her lies. As recently as this past week, she has gone on talk shows slandering the district attorney and other county officials, claiming to be the victim, a patriotic hero, and asking for money to be donated to her Give, Send, Go account, where she asks for help saving America. I ask you to look that up. It's there. She has allowed herself to be painted as a hero victim in the public eye instead of owning up to her own actions. She has claimed to be pro-law enforcement, all the while bad-mouthing police, the sheriff's office, and literally kicking at officers doing their duty. Throughout the trial, and even today, she has her sycophant entourage here believing her lies and holding her up as their hero. She has spent the past 3 years spreading her lies about what she was on trial for, and then claiming it is the DA and the state of Colorado that is to blame for the chilling effect on clerks and recorders around the country for standing up for election integrity. The truth is, Ms. Peters, Sharona Bishop, and all her compatriots have done more damage to election integrity here in Mesa County and across the nation than anyone else could. They have conducted a scorched earth campaign in county after county with their grifting claims of proof of election fraud, using smoke and mirrors to present partial truths and tidbits of information, all to increase their own fame and fortune. Across this nation, they have driven a wedge between constituents and good elected officials. Here in Mesa County, we can't push for any real investigation of election integrity concerns because the bridge is so thoroughly burned by Ms. Peters and her partners. I don't personally see Ms. Peters having any sobering change of heart unless her fundraising assets are seized and she faces serious penalties for her crimes. She should not be allowed to enrich herself on her criminal misadventures, future book deals, or any other method of profit from her actions. Her money raised should be instead used to compensate her victims and reimburse the county for her damage she has done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
I have the URL for her Give, Send, Go account if you would like to look at that.
I'll leave that to the DA if
Okay.
they wish to share that with me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Rubenstein.
Judge, if the court could check with defense if any of their witnesses are here.
Mr. Case?
I need to step out for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody's on the way, but not quite here yet, so a few more minutes. And so
Okay.
I have subpoenaed Brandy Bance and Officer Yan, and because of the court's rulings, I'm going to release them.
Okay.
Next, the people would ask Mesa County Commissioner Cody Davis to speak.
Okay. Mr. Davis, come on up to the lectern and state your name and spell your last, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Cody Davis, D-A-V-I-S.
What would you like to share? Oh, I'm sorry. What would you like to share with me?
I'm a Mesa County Commissioner, and I'm here to make an account of the cost of Mrs. Peters' actions to the taxpayers of Mesa County. I've had staff working last several months to try to calculate what that cost was. It's hard because there's a lot of unseen costs, there's a lot of opportunity costs, but we've done our level best to calculate the cost to Mesa County, to the Mesa County taxpayers. Comes out to $1.4 million and change. For some of the examples of the costs to the county, while Ms. Peters traveled the country on her elections tours, she continued to receive her salary for 16 months, despite being absent from her duties. Simple things like attesting to meetings and contracts, we had to get a court to force her to perform. The Board of County Commissioners was forced to step in as de facto clerk and recorders diverting staff and leadership from their primary roles. In 2021 and 2022, because of the actions of Ms. Peters, there was a lot of mistrust around the elections. And in 2021 and 2022, the Mesa County staff and commissioners decided to hand count all of the paper ballots in 2021. We also counted all of the ballots using Dominion as well as Clear Ballot. We then proceeded to put all those images of those ballots online for everyone to see as a means of transparency. We felt forced to do so to show the people they could trust their vote here in Mesa County. We also, in 2021 and 2022, had to hire,
What happened with that?
we had to hire, say what?
No, what happened? You did a hand count, is that what you just said?
Yes, we did.
So I want to know, what was the difference?
The hand result, the hand count result, the Dominion result, the Clear Ballot result were identical.
And how
There
many
was no
thousands of
fraud.
ballots? How many thousands of ballots are we talking about?
We're talking 90,000 plus ballots in the 2020 election. And then in 2021, it was close to 60,000. So
No material difference.
no material difference whatsoever.
Hand
And-
counted.
Hand counted. And we continue to use paper ballots, which are audited and balanced against the official record every single year. In 2021 and 2022, we had to hire designated election officials, which is what the clerk is supposed to fulfill. So while Ms. Peter was gallivanting around the country, we had to hire outside sources to come and be our DEO. One of the largest components was our legal fees. And this isn't counting what the state of Colorado or the DA has had to put forth, but the county alone has borne significant legal costs in both civil and legal cases. The impacts on county operations. Staff time has been redirected to manage these issues caused by Ms. Peters. We've had HR issues. When she was serving still as clerk and recorder for those 16 months, staff felt intimidated or pressured by Ms. Peters and her supporters. She would call in and pressure them to say certain things or not to say anything at all. And we were forced to put many of those employees on paid leave during that time. We've had deferred legal work. Due to legal complexities and the work on Ms. Peters' case, internal tasks had to be outsourced to external counsel. And just the overall resource drain in the county. And those are all the calculable costs. Then there's the incalculable costs, Your Honor. The opportunity cost. If you look around, you'll see many attorneys that are paid by Mesa County in this room. You'll see sheriff's officers that are paid in this room that are not out doing the work they're supposed to be doing for the community, arresting criminals, prosecuting criminals. Instead, we're stuck here. Resources that could have gone to public infrastructure, whether building roads, filling potholes, hiring caseworkers, or hiring new sheriff's officers, are now diverted to this case, or to backfilling the responsibilities that Ms. Peters had. And then, the biggest cost to me, Your Honor, I'm a 5th generation native. My kids are 6th generation natives to this valley. I love this place. I went out to Missouri for college and couldn't wait to get back to this community. This community has a lot of pride. We've got the Grand Mesa, the National Monument, Rattlesnake Arches, our Palisade Peaches, our bike riding and fruity, you name it. We have a lot of pride in this community. But our reputation has taken a hit. People from across Colorado and other states now associate Mesa County not with our natural beauty or agriculture, but with the infamous actions of Ms. Peters. Her behavior has made this county a national laughingstock, overshadowing our accomplishment and our values. Your Honor, Ms. Peters' actions represent a betrayal of the trust placed in her by this community. She has caused immense harm, and this is not who we are as a community. We now face the daunting task of repairing the damage she has caused, both financially and reputationally. Your Honor, we ask that you consider the full weight of these impacts in your judgment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, looks like there's some folks here for the defense. Mr. Case, your first person you'd like to speak.
Dr. Frank, please.
All right, sir, if you'd come on up here to the lectern, state your name, spell your last.
Say again, please.
State your name, spell your last.
My name's Doug Frank, Douglas G. Frank. My last name F-R-A-N-K.
What would you like to share with me?
I'm the person during the trial that was referred to as Dr. Frank. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to the court today. Thank you for this. Since first meeting Clerk Peters in April 2021, I've interacted with her on dozens of occasions, both remotely and in person. I've observed her behavior in a variety of situations, and she's always behaved with the utmost integrity. I've been investigating election fraud for almost 4 years now in 48 states, and have met in person with hundreds of election officials. When confronted with systemic problems and fraud in their elections, most officials panic. They are afraid to speak up or ask difficult questions of their state officials. They say, I don't want to be Tina Petered. I have a family to feed, but not Tina. Faced with life and career threatening decisions, and despite great personal fear on her part, she has stood. As far as I'm concerned, she's not only a Gold Star mom, but a Gold Star patriot. No one is paying me to do this. I bought my own plane tickets and paid for my own hotel room. I'm proud to call Tina my friend and to stand beside her during this ordeal. During the trial, I was described as the math teacher from Ohio. There's nothing wrong with being a math teacher, but more accurately, I'm a PhD physicist with 60 scientific peer-reviewed publications. In 1990, I was nominated for a Nobel Prize in Chemistry for a breakthrough discovery that was featured on the leading journals in the world in science. 1996, I helped establish a school for extraordinarily gifted youngsters in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I served as the math and science chairman for over 20 years. These are amazing students. If you put 10,000 kids in a room, only one of them would have an IQ like the kids we have at our school. I've also been designing electronics and writing software and computer programming since I was a teenager. I'm one of the first 300 people on the internet. I'm no stranger to math, science, and technology. I've been mathematically modeling elections since the 80s. So when I was asked by members of the Pennsylvania State Legislature to investigate their election, I was able to reverse engineer the algorithms that were being used to manipulate our elections. It was this work that caught the attention of Mr. Lindell, who made a documentary movie about my work called Scientific Proof. It was during the filming of that documentary that I met Conan Hayes, the hacker that was referred to during this trial. I also became good friends with him and Kurt Olson during that time. During the trial, I was surprised to learn that there were recordings made of my first meeting with Clerk Peters. I didn't know about that in April of 2021. Unfortunately, only the shorter recording was played during the trial. If the jury had been allowed to listen to the longer recording, they would have heard exculpatory evidence that at all times Clerk Peters was concerned about transparency, integrity, and following the law. She was asking us to bring her the evidence that we were gathering so that she and her staff could investigate it. There was no discussion of personal fame or plane rides, rather concern on Peters' part regarding reprisals from the State County Clerk Association and the Secretary of State. In fact, I was present at the meeting many months later, just prior to the cyber symposium, when it was decided that we would send Mr. Lindell's plane to retrieve Clerk Peters. Until then, she wasn't even going to be an attendee. It was someone else who exposed the fact that there were forensic images made of her systems, not her. And the tiny bit of information that was publicly exposed was blurred and unrecognizable by anyone except someone from the Secretary of State's office. There was no harm done. In other words, if the Secretary of State's office had said nothing, most people had never even heard of Tina Peters, and she would not have been thrust against her own intentions into the limelight, and we would not be here today. But instead, the Secretary of State panicked. The whole notion for my recorded phrase, "it would be a feather in your cap," was also misconstrued by the prosecution during the trial. Across the country, election officials are understandably concerned because the public...
Dr. Frank, you're suggesting that we're here today because of what the Secretary of State did?
Yes.
And not because Ms. Peters took the video in the first place and gave it to someone who then put it on the internet? That's your suggestion? You can go on. I don't need an answer.
Right. Across the country, election officials are understandably concerned because the public has been blaming them for the election fraud that occurred in 2020. In the recording, I was heard assuring Clerk Peters and her staff that if they discovered any fraud in their elections, and if they made it public, it would actually make them look good. They would be doing their jobs exceptionally well. Instead of blaming the election officials, it would be seen by the public as a feather in their cap. Clerk Peters already had sufficient evidence to be concerned. She knew about the laws about preservation of election data, and she had an official directive from the Secretary of State to perform the necessary backups. She knew that she needed to preserve the election data for further investigation, but her own IT department refused to do the backups. And when she sought a local IT professional to do them, he was not able to obtain the necessary equipment in time. Clerk Peters was out of time. The trusted build was imminent, so she called me for help. I connected her to a world-class, federally licensed white hat hacker that I had just met. He agreed to help on short notice to preserve her data and to observe the update, but on condition of anonymity because of the critical nature of his federal work. Clerk Peters even verified his credentials and checked with state officials to make sure that he was permitted to be president. This demonstrates that at all times,
What state official? What state official did she communicate with?
she testified that she contacted the Secretary of State's office to find out how many people and who could be present at the update.
No, you said she spoke to a state official that said he could be present, and I'm wondering who that was.
I don't recall that from the trial, but I remember her saying that she called the office.
She didn't testify at trial.
Well, who was it?
I thought that is something she said to you, and I'm wondering who that was.
No, she didn't say. I listened to the trial.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry, so, good
Go ahead.
question, good clarification. Let's see here. Let's see where okay, here, yes. But Clerk Peters did verify his credentials, I'm aware of that, and checked with state officials, and that's what we just talked about, to make sure that he was permitted to be present. I remember the discussion about 2 people could be present during the build. It was
Right.
that part of the testimony.
Okay.
This demonstrates that at all times, Clerk Peter was striving to be law-abiding. I've since helped to arrange election systems evaluations and penetration testing in several states. This is ongoing. It is important to understand that during such evaluations, one does not inform the staff of what and when certain things are going to happen. You know, what's the sense of announcing that you're about to do a security test to everybody? No, the idea is to test the security of the system without people knowing you're about to do that. Thus, this is not a conspiracy. This is standard practice. Banks, businesses, government institutions perform these sorts of cybersecurity evaluations all the time. For example, soon after my meeting with Clerk Peters in April 2021, I helped to arrange a similar evaluation in Lake County, Ohio. Look it up. When the results were presented to the Ohio Secretary of State, he also panicked and called the FBI. After the FBI investigation, there were no charges made because nothing illegal happened. Just like in Clerk Peters' situation, a federally licensed white hat hacker was asked by county officials to help evaluate their election systems. And both evaluations exposed the fact that their systems were out of compliance with federal standards. In the state of Missouri, their new 22 election laws require such testing on a regular basis. This shows that Tina Peters was not only behaving responsibly, but was actually ahead of the curve in terms of election integrity and security. Because I've been involved in this situation from the very outset, and during many critical points of the way, I am uniquely qualified to evaluate Clerk Peters' state of mind and intentions. I've also seen her courageous behavior during simultaneous, amazingly stressful life events. Some, I believe, are deliberately exacerbated by government officials trying to make an example out of her in order to intimidate all election officials around the country into unquestioning compliance. Tina Peters is no conspirator. Tina Peters is a patriot. Tina Peters is law-abiding. Tina Peters is not a threat to anyone except perhaps some government officials who have something to hide. It boggles my mind and shames our country that a Gold Star mom has had to endure this ordeal. She should not have to endure one more minute of this tyranny. As Jefferson said, when the people are afraid of the government, there's tyranny. When the government is afraid of the people, there's liberty. I implore the court today, restore Tina Peters' God-given liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. Mr. Case.
Alex Schroeder, please.
All right, Mr. Schroeder, come on up. Good morning, sir. If you could state your name and spell your last.
Dallas Schroeder, S-C-H-R-O-E-D-E-R.
What would you like to share with me, sir?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
As a note of, just to bring you up to speed on my experience, I was the Elbert County Clerk and Recorder, appointed in September of 2013 through the rest of that appointment from a resignation from the previous clerk, and served 2 4-year terms on my own as the Clerk and Recorder. Currently, I serve as an Elbert County Commissioner. The question today before us is, why was Clerk Peters singled out by the SOS to send a message to the rest of the Colorado County clerks? And I'll explain what I mean by that, because I experienced it firsthand. What are we supposed to do as clerks? That the message is being sent. Don't question anything. Follow the SOS blindly. Follow the edicts from the SOS without question, or else. Or else what? Be attacked publicly. Have punitive punishment extended from the SOS in conducting your elections. Be publicly maligned by misstating exact facts in press releases by the Secretary of State. How do I know that this is what the goal is and what has happened to Clerk Peters? I also know because it happened to me. I also was the object of the Secretary of State's fury. I also made a legal forensic image of the Elbert County voting system. Not just the server, but also the 2 ImageCast Central computers, as well as the adjudication computers. I voluntarily disclosed that information that I had the image to the Secretary of State in another legal proceeding, in the hopes that we would be able to use that image to prove or disprove the allegations that were being put out about Dominion voting system. The goal always was to find the truth. The Secretary of State was not interested in working with us on that. Instead, they sued us. And the court ruled that we had to turn those drives back over to the Secretary of State's office, which we complied with the law. But as I said, the goal all along was for my images to either prove or disprove the allegations against Dominion. I've challenged publicly the Secretary of State to use those images to prove or disprove the problems that may or may not exist within the Dominion system. Nothing has been done. To my knowledge, nothing publicly has been done with my images that we turned over to the Secretary of State's office. And that leaves me with no other conclusion than that the SOS is intent on preventing evidence of deficiencies of Dominion voting systems and that system should not have been certified. Well, what happens when a clerk and recorder, such as Clerk Peters, who has the most pulse on the ground, understands what's going on with her electorate, understands what's going on within her system, when something is off, when something doesn't quite make sense? What is she to do? Well, obviously start asking questions and start making an investigation to see what may or may not be wrong there. The problem is that Clerk Peters gets no help from the Secretary of State's office. From the moment after the 2020 election, the Secretary of State's office continually referred to the voting system and the voting standards in Colorado as the gold standard. There was no help from the Colorado County Clerks Association. Their continued mantra was that any allegation had already been debunked with no evidence of such debunking.
Mr. Schroeder?
Yes.
You heard, maybe you weren't here when Commissioner Davis was at that lectern. Were you here for that?
I was not.
And he said that the county undertook a hand count of the elections that had occurred, I believe in 2020 and 2021. Was that right, Commissioner? 2021. And that the hand count was identical, or there was just no difference between what the machines calculated and what the hand count showed.
Yes, I'm familiar with the process.
Yeah.
There.
So,
but that would have been after the system configuration that was used in the images that Clerk Peter used after that trusted build for a new system that was a new configuration that was placed on the system.
So what?
After the trusted, well, so what? We don't know what the original one was. And so to have that information is vital to the integrity of the election.
The numbers were the same.
I understand. We've done hand counts in Elbert County as well and done that as well. But the point is, if we want to really evaluate what the system is doing, we have a clean copy of an image that the Secretary is unwilling to look at.
You want to evaluate it in a clearer way than actually going back and looking at what the machine told you the results were and then counting the ballots yourself?
I think it makes sense that we have the opportunity to see everything that's going on within the system.
Carry on.
So no assistance, no help from any officials or associations, and most clerks at that point would just fold up their tents and go home. But Clerk Peters continued to search for the truth. In my opinion, Clerk Peters should not be incarcerated for searching for the truth. Local election officials must have the freedom to evaluate and test their voting systems. When questions arise, they should be able to verify those questions. Any incarceration for Clerk Peters sends the message that the effort of the clerk's resources to call on issues and affect things provides a chilling effect if there's future problems and future concerns that clerks have. Instead of raising their hand and say, we may have an issue here, they will stick their heads in the sand, fearful of the Secretary of State, the serious ramifications, and this has serious ramifications for the integrity of our elections. Clerk Peters should not be incarcerated because she was the only clerk in Colorado to loudly talk about, arguably, criminal conduct of the SOS deleting records in the trusted build process. That is the core reason why she is being prosecuted, to keep clerks in line and bully clerks into not speaking out. And I can tell you that that has happened. During our legal confrontation with the Secretary of State's office, on 3 separate occasions, once on a phone call, once by an email, and once the person was so scared of the Secretary of State that they used a letter through the snail mail to inform me, all 3 of them, that they supported me standing up against the Secretary of State's office, but they were unwilling to go public because of the potential ramifications of what may come down from the Secretary of State's office if they spoke up. That's a chilling effect. That is tyranny at its worst, when people are afraid to be able to stand up and say what they truly believe and to investigate things. And for that reason alone, I believe the message should be sent that clerks need to be able to stand up, say what they think is going on, right or wrong, in the election world, and not be punished for it. Thank you.
Mr. Schroeder, I did have one question. You said you did a hand count in your jurisdiction as well?
Yes, sir.
And what were the results of that?
They showed it was in Albert County, it was counting correctly.
The machine did its job?
Correct, yes.
And then you were able to do that through some statute or rule or collaboration with the Secretary of State's office?
So after the election has been certified, all election material is in custodian of the clerk and recorder. And so we absolutely have the right to pull those out and verify the count.
And when you say you had the right to do it, did you have to ask the SOS for permission to do that?
No, we did not.
You didn't. You could just do it. All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Case, anyone else?
Ed Arnos, please.
Okay. Good morning, sir. Oh. Good morning, sir. If you could state your name and spell your last, please.
Ed Arnos, A-R-N-O-S.
What would you like to share with me?
My background for 45 years is in managing and creating hardware and software for computer systems, as well as supporting and responding to problems that have occurred in them. I'm sort of not an expert in any one area. I'm more of a Renaissance computer person covering many areas. The thing that I was asked to speak to is it was anticipated that the county might assert that they had to replace the computer system because of the breach that occurred when an unauthorized person came into the computer room. And I objected to that strongly because the Secretary of State has provided in the rules the hardware diagnostics that will confirm that the hardware is working according to specifications, and that the Secretary of State doesn't normally provide it, but at the time of the trusted builds, a version of the software that's certified to conduct elections is available. It's my assumption that the Secretary of State would have that, and restoring that means that that computer system is usable. It's certified by the Secretary of State. I hope that point is made clear. He didn't reference that expense, but I want to add not prepared to say this, but I'm doing it extemporaneously. Two things. One is the fact that the election is confirmed by a hand recount and running on another system is not sufficient to justify not taking an image of the system that's being used for the election. In particular, not taking it when the election is being conducted. If you allow any interval of time after that, somebody may have modified the software and you don't have a copy of what was taken, what was used during the election. The significance of that is if you do have the copy, Dallas Schroeder referred to it, if you do have that copy, you can restore that to the computer system and it will produce not just a close approximation of the election results, identical results to the vote. We don't take advantage of that. In fact, we're precluding a clerk from doing that, which is one of the reasons that it wasn't available from Dominion on the system that we have. We pay a lot of money for that system, and that tool is indispensable. The reason Tina has been involved with all this stuff is that tool was not available to her. She had to go and get it when she realized that the trusted build team was about to wipe out all the existing software on the system. There, I'll be quiet. That's not a common activity.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Case?
Our next witness, Christine Chaveras, has not arrived yet, so we yield to the prosecutor if they want to put
When is she
somebody
gonna get
else
here? Where,
I'm told any minute. She left at 10:05.
From where?
She wasn't supposed to be here till 11. She wasn't supposed to be here till 11.
I don't know her home address.
Well,
but
I'm not looking for the address. From Delta? From Montrose?
no,
from...
she lives in Grand Junction.
Oh,
and
okay.
her office is over at First and North.
Oh,
So
okay.
But she didn't think she was going to be here.
Mr. Rubenstein, do you have another witness you'd like to call?
I do, Your Honor. The people would ask former Congressman and former Mesa County Commissioner Scott McGinnis to speak.
Mr. McGinnis, if you would like to come on up here to the lectern. If you could state your name, sir, and please spell your last.
Yes, sir. My name is Scott McGinnis, spelling M-C-I-N-N-I-S.
What would you like to share with me?
Well, first of all, thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to put forward my opinion as a former county commissioner who dealt extensively with this matter. I concur with the remarks made previously by Commissioner Cody Davis. With the defendant in this case, Your Honor, this court has before it a significant breach of trust, deception, and clear dereliction of duty. In Mesa County, the defendant, when elected, joined a team of community-supported and trusted elected officials who led 1,300 employees of this county. This would include the clerk and recorder's office, the sheriff's office, the DA, the commissioners, the treasurer, the assessor, etc. Excuse me. The team also, in a broader sense, included many, many employees in departments like health, personnel, legal, etc. The community counts on this team, and our community has high expectations, not only for the employees, but mostly for the elected officials. The defendant was welcomed to this team and seemed to have a strong start. The previous clerk, Sheila Rainier, left that office in excellent shape. But soon after the clerk's office and the clerk began to require more and more attention from the commissioners, legal and personnel. Not a big problem, but it wasn't normal. Then what got my attention and made me a little skeptical was when out of the blue, sometime around when the gentleman Franks held a local conference about elections, the defendant came to a weekly commissioner meeting and demanded, without reasoning or reason, that the board break the contract with a company named Dominion, which would cost the county at least a couple of $100,000s under the terms of contract for breach. We denied the request, but I was curious. I wondered, where did this all come from? And then all of a sudden, from that point, Your Honor, the train began to derail. The defendant seemed to have taken on a role as the leader of a pack alleging that a massive voter fraud occurred in Mesa County and had taken effect in the elections. And the evidence that she, quote, discovered, unquote, existed in our Dominion computers that would prove the stolen election theory that was making the rounds in the United States. The defendant's actions then began, Your Honor, to rapidly cascade to a crisis level. Our constituents, fellow clerks, and people across the nation heard over and over many allegations, statements, studies of the Dominion fraud. For example, statements coming right out of our court hearing room, statements that 5,000 dead people voted in Mesa County, that the Chinese had hacked the city of Grand Junction's elections, that the paper ballots and even the envelopes these ballots were put into would prove this fraud. The defendant and her following believed the commissioners and the Secretary of State were complicit with Dominion. There were heated meetings, and as a result, and the elected officials, as a team, we were seeing our trusted capital with this community that we have built with this community crumbling before us. The county felt a duty of due diligence to check out every allegation they made. We checked out every one of them, and it cost us a lot of money. And along this line, we looked at other things too, but we did what we should have done, and that's the due diligence. And the people that came and made these comments, they were entitled. These are good people. I know some of these people. They're good people. And we felt an obligation to make sure that we followed through on this. But I want you to know, Your Honor, as of this moment, as of this day, this hour, this moment, they have never produced not one fraudulent vote. Your Honor, not one fraudulent vote in Mesa County. Despite all these allegations, despite all these studies, despite the clerk repeatedly ferrying around the nation about Mesa County being kind of central for the country to break out the fraud in the election that occurred.
What about vote flipping?
What's that?
What about vote flipping?
We had no fraudulent votes proved in this county, no fraudulent activity. I will tell you that it's possible that a dead person can vote in an election because of early voting. So you may have somebody who votes, those votes are mailed in, and those votes are counted, as I understand it. I'm not a clerk. And by the way, we had very little experience on elections.
But did you find that?
Pardon me?
Did you find that? Did you find that to have occurred?
We'd have to ask the acting clerk.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's a good question. I did understand that it's not uncommon for 2 or 3 people to have died during the early voting process, which I think our process starts here in the next couple of weeks and goes for the next up till election day.
So they were alive when they voted, and then they died. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have made that clear.
I understood it.
And we certainly didn't have 5,000. That you get the point.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Then the night the cameras went off, and an important point there, Your Honor. Best of my knowledge, having visited with previous clerks, no one ever recalled, except when from the point the cameras were first installed, that those security cameras had ever been shut off. The Dominion computer then was hacked by the person that we least suspected would hack it. None of us ever thought the clerk would go in late at night on a Sunday, obviously to avoid recognition or attention, shut off these cameras, and hack our computers. We never had any kind of suspect that would occur. But it sure did, and it was by this defendant. One should consider that the defendant, she had all of these, and we heard from previous witnesses, we heard that, suspicious of this, suspicious of that, she reached out here, she couldn't get help there. Your Honor, she never went to the Sheriff's Department, she never went to the DA's office, she never went to the Secretary of State's office, she never went to the Attorney's office, she never came to the commissioners. She didn't go to the CBI, the State Patrol, you get the point? She didn't ask for outside help. She could have easily gone to any of these agencies who have investigative authority and asked for assistance in these things that she's come up with, but she didn't do it. The next thing that happened, the passwords got out, and complete chaos overtook us. The leakage of these passwords resulted in not only decertification of the election Dominion computers, but many demands by the Secretary of State's office and almost full-time attention of the legal department, the personnel department, and the IT department. The commissioners had to step in and take charge, and I guess, Your Honor, that combined we probably had cumulative about 3 minutes of experience in running a campaign. I mean, not a campaign, excuse me, an election. We were forced to step on because, you know what happened to the defendant? She's in another stage, in another state, on the stage with the pillow guy. I call him the pillow guy. Right after that, she went on the run. She went on the run. Your Honor, if you don't mind, if the
I can hear her
laughter
laughing.
from the-
I can hear her laughing.
Okay, good. She went on the run. I mean, literally went on the run. And I can tell you, she left the team. And she went on the run for weeks and weeks. The defendant left the team and the folks, her own employee at the clerk's office, when we needed her most. And that's when we needed her. This is a crisis going on. We couldn't communicate with her. She would not call in. We had no idea. We did know she was going to different spots around the country. At one point, we did receive a message from one of her supporters that she was afraid of her life or worried about security. So we said, we'll get word back to her. The sheriff's department will provide whatever security is necessary. Come home, Tina. We had a public meeting, several public meetings. At the beginning of the meeting, Your Honor, I would say, some of you out here may have communication with Tina. Please call the clerk. Ask her to come home. Ask her to communicate with us. We need her help. But she didn't. She was AWOL. And those 4 or 5 weeks were critical. Your Honor, it would take me hours and hours to go through the hardships, the lawsuits, and the significant problems, as well as the costs that this defendant has cost the good people of this county. And we all know what's happened to our reputation, which will take a long time to put it back together. We are a county of trusted elected officials. We are a county of good people. We're not a county with high crime rate. And we're not a county in the history of this county, the best of my knowledge. Well, let me take that back. I think several years ago, one person voted twice, here and in another state. Other than that, I have no recollection of any voter fraud occurring here. And again, Your Honor, they did not produce one vote. Even Schroeder, we said, just show us one. Show us one vote. They never did, and they haven't still. The defendant broke her trust. She broke her trust with departments. She broke herself with the clerk's trust with the clerk's office, and maybe even the good people who believed in her. The defendant is a disgrace. She has not brought forth that vote, that fraudulent vote. She has no proof of her allegations. She brought forth this disgrace, her breach of duty to the office. She brought forth the breach of her oath to the office. Her misstatements brought breach of duty, in my opinion, to her office. Her abandonment from the office and the employees, and abandonment from the community. She has brought costs easily exceeding, as you'd heard earlier, $1 million. And these costs would not have been incurred but for her actions. She brought disorder to this community. Your Honor, even in a couple of days after her conviction by her peers, right after the conviction in this courtroom, she publicly came out and said, no, the conspiracy is now out of Serbia. It doesn't stop. There was an article last week in the Sentinel where another location for this conspiracy and this Dominion stuff. She damaged the reputations of many people, and you've heard from a couple of them today. Her actions brought to this community nationwide negative bad press. And throughout all of this, while she was wanting to be a national self-proclaimed hero about solving the election that they claim was stolen, she knew the damage she was creating. She knew the damage that was happening to people in this community. She knew the damage cost-wise. She knew the damage to a lot of different things. It isn't somebody who innocently fell into this. Your Honor, with all due respect, in my opinion, the defendant should suffer for the consequences of her action. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, is she here?
Yes,
Okay, great.
Christine Chaveras.
Good morning, Ms. Chaveras. If you could please state your name and spell your last.
It's Christine Chavaras. It's CHIAVARAS.
What would you like to share with me?
I am just here to share my personal relationship with Tina and her family, just to speak on her behalf. I've not been present in any of these hearings, and I have kept my relationship with Tina, not of a political one, but as a personal one. I first met Thomas Peters, the late Thomas Peters, her husband, in 2018. I am a local mortgage broker and financial advisor, and I handled his purchase of a home at the time when they had gone through a separation. Tom was sick, and he had Parkinson's and was on the decline at that time. And it was soon after he purchased that home that Tina came into our lives, and I met Tina. And Tina and Tom had actually a very loving relationship. We developed our friendship with them over the years. My family, I have 3 children, ages 37, 35, and 30, all married with grandchildren. They've all been a part of both Tom, and I'm sorry, both Tom and Tina.
If you need some tissues, they're right there.
So this has been very close to our hearts, though we've stayed away from this. Tina is very much so a part of our family. We've spent a lot of time together. We spend our holidays together. She's a part of my kid's life. We've spent time up at her property in Colburn with the kids. And so we became very close. When I worked with Tom, Tom's decline was more than what I could handle. He became a personal friend of mine and my kids, and we helped take care of him. And when Tina stepped in to start helping back into his life, I helped her and Tom with his care. When she could no longer provide care for him, we made sure that he went to the VA. Tina and I would go and break him out and take him for dinners, and had take him up to the property and spend as much time as we could with him. Family dinners, he looked forward to football at our house. My kids would go over and set up his TV. And I'm here today just to say that, again, I haven't followed this on purpose because I've kept it very separate for me. But I can say that Tina is such a big part of our family, and she's never been off the radar in my life. And so when I heard that last testimony, no, I've always known where Tina is. Tina's always been there for me. Her integrity is incredible for our family. She has supported us through our losses over the past few years, and I've supported her back through her loss, watching Tom's demise and watching him basically lose his life, and the life just coming out of him has been something that we've shared many tears and, comfort for each other. So my relationship stems back to 2018 up till now, and Tina's always been very present in my life. Her integrity, her support, her love for our family is something that I really don't want to lose. And so I'm here today to just plead that whatever the case is, that, probation is considered, or, that she's not taken from our family. And so I just wanted to speak on her behalf and our love for her and support today, and hopefully that it's our hope and prayer that she's able to stay very present in our lives.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Case?
No further witnesses other than Ms. Peters.
Okay. And that's the end of the argument from defense, other than what Ms. Peters will tell me. Is that correct? I just want to be sure, because that's the way this works. Like I said before, I hear first from the defense attorneys, then I hear from the prosecution, and then I'm going to hear from Ms. Peters. There's not going to be rebuttal.
So,
Excuse me.
I think Mr. Administrator will.
He did speak. Mr. Administrator did make a sentencing argument earlier.
All right.
But I just want to make sure that there isn't, there's no confusion about when you say you're done, and then I'm going to hear from the prosecution, and then I'm going to hear from Ms. Peters.
Okay, I need just a moment. to
Yeah.
confer with Mr.
Sure,
Peters.
take your
Thank
time.
you.
Mr. Case?
We have no further presentation except for Ms. Peters, Your Honor.
All right, very well, thank you, sir. Mr. Rubenstein or whomever for the people.
Thank you, Your Honor. My final witness is Matt Crane, Executive Director of the Colorado Clerks Association.
Okay, Mr. Crane, if you can come on up here to the lectern, please, and state your name, spell your last.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good
My
morning.
name is Matt Crane, C-R-A-N-E.
What would you like to share with me?
Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I am the Executive Director of the Colorado County Clerks Association. I've worked in election administration at both the state and local level here in Colorado since the year 2000, including serving as the Arapahoe County Clerk and Recorder from 2013 through 2019. Along with my duties here in Colorado, I also serve as an election subject matter expert consultant on election processes and security across the country. I feel a heavy responsibility today as I speak. I feel this because I know I am speaking for the amazing individuals who serve Colorado as county clerks and their teams, as well as the thousands of Americans across our country who work in elections. On their behalf, I want to start by saying it is not possible to overestimate the damage done by Tina Peters. In a real and specific way, her actions have led directly to death threats and general threats to the lives and the families of the people who work in our elections. She has willingly aided individuals in our country who believe that violence is a way to make a point. She has knowingly fueled a fire within others who choose threats as a means to get their way. We have many examples of Colorado clerks who have experienced directly what Tina has brought to our state's doorstep. These are clerks deeply rooted in their communities, many of them for their entire lives, who now are called out in the grocery store or places of worship. I've also experienced this in my life. In my role, I have received death threats and most painfully have had individuals motivated, at least in part, by Tina's actions threatening the lives of my wife and my children. While her actions and the direct threats they have inspired while her actions and the direct threats they have inspired are tangible and need to be acknowledged, I wanted to speak about the less tangible results of her actions today. When you serve as clerk and recorder or work in elections, you treat this work as more than just a job. You understand that your work is a part of a sacred trust shared with all Americans. You know that your efforts underpin our entire democracy. Without the ability for citizens to safely and accurately elect their government, democracy does not exist. It is this foundational element that Tina has willfully chosen to undermine. In part, I believe she did this because she simply didn't understand her job. Managing and running elections is complicated. These processes are very specific and require great attention to detail. I can assure this court that Tina never even attempted to master any of these procedures. For instance, she left our association's training opportunity for new clerks early. She never completed the work to become a certified Colorado election official, which is something required of all clerks and people who work elections in Colorado. I've listened.
So how is that possible? If she didn't complete it, how did she get to continue to do her job? Is it because she was elected, and that's just the way it is, or?
No, it's a great question, Your Honor. There was no teeth in the law before this for clerks who were negligent in their duty like Tina has been. Since then, we've adjusted the law here in Colorado so that if you don't get certified within 6 months, then you can be removed as a designated election official in your jurisdiction.
And out of curiosity then, how common was it that someone who was elected as the clerk and recorder wouldn't get so certified?
I think after 2 years, very uncommon. I think Tina through 2 years I know she didn't get her certification, but I think it's very uncommon.
By uncommon, like 1, 2 out of the?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. Probably 5 or less, if I had to guess.
Okay, that's all. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I've listened since she was exposed publicly as having violated her oath of office to her talk about her responsibility to preserve election records, and I've come to believe that she doesn't understand what that means. That's why when her actions came to light, I was not surprised that the bad actors that populate the election denial movement in America found an easy mark. Now, that comment may present Tina as a sympathetic figure who was taken advantage of, but I want to be clear, that's not the case. She was a willing participant in this scheme. Had she wanted to follow the law and retain non-required records like computer operating system logs, she could have done what Larimer County did in 2021 when Republican clerk and recorder Angela Myers called the Secretary of State's office for guidance on backing up those files along with all required election records. Tina instead chose to undermine the security of her office, sneak someone in with credentials that were not their own, and turn off the cameras, which, as we've heard earlier, had been cameras being on here in Mesa County Elections Office had been the standing operating procedure for at least a decade. Her actions were treacherous, certainly not honorable or heroic, and the actions of someone who, nor were they the actions of someone who were duped, but rather someone who was willingly participating in an orchestrated plot. In real terms, her misguided actions have done the following. One, they served as a fuel for a national movement that threatens the very heart of our democratic processes. Two, created an environment of distrust for election workers across America, and particularly here in Colorado, which in some cases has led to death threats and intimidation. Three, she made the version of her election system that she compromised more vulnerable and less secure. With the voting system out in the wild, any bad actor can study that image and look for ways to undermine the system should they get direct physical access to each component. Four, she contributed to the loss of thousands of honest, hardworking men and women across the country who have worked in our elections for decades due to constant harassment and threats her actions have helped inspire. Here in Colorado, we've seen longtime clerks choose retirement due to the flames that Tina has willfully fanned. She's created an environment in our state where county clerks spend far too much of their time and effort countering lies created by the individuals Tina sought to help, and theirs perpetuated by Tina herself. Six, she cost Mesa County over $1 million of taxpayer money, as we've heard earlier, to purchase, test, and retest systems that she undermined. Number seven, cost Mesa County and voters across the nation trust in their system of government for no reason. The current clerk and recorder here in Mesa County is working hard to repair this damage, but it's an effort that she shouldn't have to spend. I'd hoped that following her conviction by a jury of her peers in this courthouse, that Tina would have finally come to understand the real impact of what she had done. Instead, she seems to have doubled down on her lies and her willful ignorance about how our elections work. I have seen her ongoing posts on social media and am aware of her ongoing speaking efforts. All of these are aimed at continuing to undermine election processes and the individuals who manage our elections. Sadly, they also appear to be a means of income for Tina as well. The only positive outcome of Tina's unlawful actions is one she didn't intend. Her actions awaken the network of individuals, these men and women across the country charged with protecting elections, to the real and present danger of insider threats. Her callous disregard for her sacred oath has strengthened our resolve and our processes to guard against someone inside an election office taking advantage of their position to undermine our most cherished right to free, fair, and yes, secure elections. Being a county clerk, Your Honor, it's not a glamorous job. People don't run for this office because they want to be famous. They run for the job because they want to be of service. These people have had their jobs made immeasurably harder by what Tina Peters did and her ongoing efforts to fuel the machine that continues to spread lies and disinformation. But most importantly, her actions have contributed to millions of Americans developing a distrust in their elections for no reason. This undermining of the trust placed in our elections by Tina and those she aided is the most dangerous outcome of her willful disregard for the federal and Colorado laws around elections. We cannot maintain a democracy when the governed do not believe the government was fairly and accurately elected. It is for this, Your Honor, that we believe she deserves the harshest penalty this court can deliver. I urge this court to consider all the impacts of Tina's actions, as well as the fact that she had no remorse for the incredible damage she has caused as you contemplate her sentence today. I want to be clear, Your Honor. The only illegal activity and fraudulent activity around Mesa County elections was orchestrated by Tina Peters. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment today.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. Rubenstein.
Thank you, Judge. Judges, I've listened to the various people speak for the defense. I've heard several times that this was Ms. Peters being singled out by the Secretary of State. And I think Your Honor knows this already, but I want to make it very clear. The Secretary of State has played absolutely zero role in any decision that I have made in bringing this prosecution. Like Ms. Peters, I was elected to represent the County of Mesa, the 21st Judicial District, which is a single county district. Like Commissioner McGinnis and Commissioner Davis, who spoke, they were also elected to represent this community. And I know from speaking to my community and speaking to the commissioners who also represent this community that this is being brought on behalf of this community. Some of the people I asked to speak today Mr. Wood obviously was personally impacted along with his wife, but the commissioners to speak about the impact to the community, and Mr. Crane to speak about not just the impact to the community, but to the state and to the country. And it is for that reason that her actions are being singled out for prosecution, because she and she alone caused those things. When it comes down to it, Your Honor, this country is founded on checks and balances. The Constitution is founded on checks and balances. The oath that Ms. Peters took, that I took, that Your Honor took, that talks about upholding the laws of the state of Colorado and the Constitution of the state of Colorado and the Constitution of the United States, is about checks and balances. There are 3 branches of government that check each other and balance each other. Even single branches of government have checks and balances. Different elected officials in the executive branch have checks and balances. Here, the Secretary of State had the passcodes, the clerk had the computers, and the independent vendor had the software. Her entire goal in this case was to subvert the checks and balances that are so fundamental to what it is to be an American, the security of our votes. And she keeps repeating it. She keeps saying, I alone have the authority. I alone have the decision as to who goes into that room. All things that she keeps repeating, and she keeps repeating it on our podcast, but that's not true. There is a process. If you don't like something, you report it to law enforcement. You go to the district attorney who has the authority to investigate and who has investigated. You go to the county attorney and you bring a lawsuit for a declaratory judgment about whether or not you or the Secretary of State is right about your ability to perform your functions of the job. But instead, Ms. Peters shuts off the cameras. She's dishonest with everyone to cover it up. And this case is only an example of her repeated dishonesty to undermine the process. Throughout this case, she told each person what that person needed to hear to manipulate them. Brenda Moore, who testified, she's the head of HR. She obviously knows that Conan James Hayes is not an employee of the county. So she goes to Brenda, and she gets the head of HR to give a badge for somebody who's going to do consultant work for computers in the name of Gerald Wood. David Underwood, who has to give computer access. She tells him what he needs to hear. What does he need to hear? He was the one that gave state access to a prior person during what's been referred to as Ballotgate. So what he needed to hear is, oh, this is a state employee who's coming in. Gerald Wood, they needed Gerald Wood's cooperation to get a badge. So what did they tell him? We're gonna hire you to do some consultant work, go get a badge. And when he does, they take the badge and say, thanks, we'll call you when we need you. Danny Casillas and David Romero, what did they need to hear? They needed to hear that Gerald Wood or Conan James Hayes was Gerald Wood and that he was a county employee. For each person, she had her own act of dishonesty. James Cannon, she lies to James Cannon on the phone when he calls to find out what happened, and she acted like it was preposterous that anything like this could have happened, knowing full well that she was the one that orchestrated this, that set this up. But all of this related to this case is just an example of her pattern of dishonesty. She lies to manipulate people to get what she wants, to get what she wants them to do, so she can be in the spotlight and cost the Americans confidence in the election process. She was found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the contempt proceedings. She lies to the police about whose iPad it was. So what makes Ms. Peters' situation different than others? At the time that all this happened, she was an elected official. She had an audience, and she still does. She took an oath to uphold it. The exhibits I filed with the court for sentencing show the way she manipulates the truth, refuses to acknowledge any role in any of this, and she uses that audience to shape people's view of the courts, of police, of court orders. We live in a community where cops are challenged, where we have officer-involved shootings, and she is on podcasts talking about how you should mistrust the police. You shouldn't follow court orders. Court orders don't mean anything. Search warrants don't mean anything. For more than a year, we had people showing up at the commissioner hearings, yelling at the commissioners like they were the enemy in this. Our elected leaders are not supposed to be the ones who are making up lies to turn people against their government officials. Our elected leaders are not supposed to be the one telling others to disregard court orders. She was removed from being the designated election official in a 22-page order from Judge Robison with extensive findings of her dishonesty, and she continues to disregard the court's authority, even showing up at the clerk's office on election day when she has a restraining order prohibiting her from doing that, and bringing a crew to film it. So why is this significant, Judge? Because we sit before this court today for sentencing, and the statutes give out the purposes for sentencing. The statutes 18-1-102.5-1A says that the sentence should punish the convicted offender in relation to the seriousness of the offense. Here we have an attempt to influence public servant charge. Usually when we have those charges, it's somebody who lied to their probation officer that they did their community service. Not much harm comes of that. We correct it, but they still get prosecuted for it. This is by far the most aggravated attempt to influence a public servant's charge I have ever seen in my career. By far the most aggravated one I've seen across the state ever in my career. 1B, to assure fairness and consistent treatment. Again, the most aggravated version should yield the most aggravated sentence. 1C, to promote respect for the law. I don't think anybody in this room would even make a straight-face argument that Ms. Peters has demonstrated any respect for the law. Further in C, to provide a deterrent to others who will likely commit similar offenses. There was a motion filed by the defense saying that this happening before Election Day would have a chilling effect on other clerks. The statute actually directs, Your Honor, to consider the chilling effect that this should have on other people committing the same crimes she committed. Mr. Schroeder got up and said, we don't want to discourage people from raising their hand and saying we may have an issue here. That's absolutely true. We want people to raise their hand and say we have an issue here, not commit a bunch of crimes covertly to try to figure out if there's an issue. To promote rehabilitation, the defense has argued for probation. I would submit that Ms. Peters has demonstrated repeatedly that she does not think she did anything wrong. She submitted a statement to the court in the pre-sentence investigation report, giving excuses, giving justifications, but never once acknowledging that she did something wrong, that this was not the way to handle this. What does every 12-step program start with? It starts with acknowledging you have a problem, and she has not done that, and there's no purpose in rehabilitation for somebody who does not think they did anything wrong. Subsection 1F says that the sentence should be one that promotes acceptance of responsibility and accountability by offenders and to provide restoration and healing for the community. As Your Honor has heard from the other witnesses that spoke, Ms. Peters has made this community a joke. She's made respecting law enforcement a joke, made respecting court orders a joke. She's not accepted any responsibility and considers this a badge of honor. So as the elected official on behalf of this community, I am asking Your Honor to sentence her to the Department of Corrections on each count for at least the midpoint of the presumptive range, but I believe a maximum sentence would be appropriate in most, if not all, of the counts. I would not object to the 2 counts with the Secretary of State victims running concurrent to each other, but I would ask that the court run consecutive the victim groups, Gerald Wood, the county official, and the Secretary of State officials. And I know it is unusual to ask for a jail sentence to run consecutive to a Department of Corrections sentence, and the appellate courts disfavor it in most situations, but in this situation I believe it's appropriate because the county citizens are the victims of the official misconduct charge, and that is a separate group, and I would ask the court to sentence her to the maximum sentence of jail to run consecutive to the Department of Corrections. We are not asking for restitution in this case, despite the representations of the commissioners as to all that she has cost this county, because Colorado's restitution laws are so restrictive on the specific conduct and whether or not that restitution is the proximate cause of the specific conduct for which she was convicted. But we are asking for the cost of prosecution that we filed with the court of $2,409.97. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rubenstein. Ms. Peters, you have the right to address me before I impose any sentence upon you. You do not have to address me, ma'am, and in fact, you retain the right to remain silent, and if you choose not to address me, I will not use your decision to not address me in any way against you. But if you do wish to address me, you can tell me as much or as little about you, this case or anything else you think I need to know in order to impose my sentence properly in your mind, I would just ask that you stand when you address me.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. May I take the podium?
Yes,
Is that
the
okay?
lectern, yes, you may.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. It's with a heavy heart that I hear the vile accusations and the anger levied against me for what I did to serve the people of Mesa County. You know, maintaining my innocence is not disrespect for the law. I respect the jury verdict based on the evidence that they were allowed to hear. There's much that they weren't allowed to hear. I never intended a video of the trusted bill to be made public. I did not authorize it to be made public. I asked questions about Dominion violating election laws. One moment. Judge, I'm asking for probation. Since 2022, I've been on restriction, and now I have an ankle bracelet that I've been compliant with that.
Oh, are we doing something on the screen? Oh,
Yes,
I didn't know that.
yes, Your Honor.
I need to know that.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Thank
That's
you.
all right. Excuse me.
Judge, I've never lied to you. Can we zoom in on that, please?
Yeah.
Mr. Rubenstein accused me in court of recording on my iPad. I did not record on my iPad. This was the transcript of that. He says, I've now seen the screen, and indeed, it's recording. Then later, Rubenstein admitted he didn't know if I was recording or not. I have no idea if it was recording or not. In my eyes, Mr. Rubenstein lied to you, Judge, which resulted in me being seized and now wearing an ankle bracelet for contempt and lying to you.
The ankle bracelet is for your contempt or for your conviction in the obstruction case?
Well, all of those two cases were a direct result of that day in court that the DA got up, interrupted a normal proceeding. I didn't interrupt the proceeding to get up and cause a big stir.
Oh, Judge Dunkelman found otherwise, but I guess we can just disagree on that. I understand what you're saying. Go ahead.
They kept the iPad for 15 months. They never searched it. And when my attorneys had it transferred to a lab, they said there was no recording ever on it. None of the 66 videos were deleted. You can go back down, or go up. No, go the other way. The report states, wait, stop. Go up a little bit more, thank you. 66 recordings were extracted from the iPad. None of the 66 videos were deleted. None of the videos were recorded on February 7th, 2022. There was never any recording made, and my iPad proves it. I want to take a break here and address some of the accusations, the vile accusations that have been levied against me with such anger and vile. As a Christian woman and as a gentle person, basically, that stepped up to run for county clerk and recorder because we had 3.5-hour wait times from the prior, who is now the present clerk, who was the manager of elections, 3.5 hour wait times. I looked at that, Judge, as a business owner. I could have minded my own business. I could have stayed living a great life, my husband and I. But instead, I stood up and I said, I can fix that. My son said in his SEAL Team 6 paperwork before he died, I read it after he died. He said, describe your mother. He said, she fixes things. When I see something that needs to be fixed, that's good, I believe that everyone should do that. I ran for clerk and recorder, and I'll get into that part in just a moment, but I'm very taken back by how awful I've been depicted when I was just trying to do my job, the people expected me to do. When I look at the people that have spoken here today and asking for harsh sentences, I'm just appalled. I feel bad for them because I know, I've often said God doesn't like people messing with his kids. And I believe I'm a child of God. And I believe that it was important for someone to stand up. And I chose to do that. As far as Gerald Wood and Wendy Wood, I think during the trial, the text messages that were presented, when at first Gerald Wood said, he said that, yes, I used the name Trebuchet. Yes, that's my phone number. His picture was on there. And then when and the date, which was May 14th, I believe. And then when he started reading that it said, I'm your guy, meaning he was the guy that was going to stand in. He had agreed to stand in and use his identity to protect the identity of Conan Hayes, who had just busted, by his efforts for the federal government, a human trafficking organization called Backpage. My son was involved in anti-human trafficking. He worked with, as a Navy SEAL, he worked with Texas Rangers, and that's what they did that nobody ever knew. And that's what I believe caused his death. But when he looked at those, when he changed his tune after he was shown the proof that he was complicit, that he knew that he was stepping up to conceal the identity of Conan Hayes, to see him deny it now while we have proof in text from him that he admitted were his, and then all of a sudden had a case of amnesia. Here it is right here.
I don't know if I need to turn this on or not, but go ahead and hit
Can you
play.
make that bigger? Okay.
Are you
So let's stop right there. Can we stop it? Tina, this is our guy. He says, that I am. And then I said, hi, guy. Nice to meet you. I'll call tomorrow. Is there a good time, early morning or afternoon for you? I have meetings, and I explained that. Okay, keep going. But this is Sharona Bishop saying, this is your guy. He gives me his phone number. He says, Fridays are generally quiet for me, if you can stop here. And that was May 13th. Feel free to call whenever's best for you. Awesome, will do. Then he says, I have my Mesa County employee badge now. Now, this is a man who never filled out an employment application. Stop right there. This is a man who never filled out an employment application, never went through the interview process, but now he has an employee badge. Don't you think that somebody like that would wonder? No. Okay, we're getting prepared. I think it would be good to bring in Sandy at this point to strategize before our guest comes. Who do you think that refers to? The guest comes. So right there, you can see, Your Honor, that Gerald Wood knew what his role in this was. As much as he, because of fear or whatever else the prosecution aimed at him, to get to testify against me for his freedom, and throw me under the bus. He says that the give, send, go. They talk about that I lied about that involvement. They talk about the give, send, go, that I've profited from this, Judge. That goes to pay my attorneys. I don't have the money of the Colorado Attorney General's office, who is represented here, who were sworn in to be prosecutors in this case and who conducted the trial. It takes a lot of money to fight the government. Cody Davis, when he got up. So during this time when the ankle break, when the iPad, when I was accused of recording in your courtroom, just sitting right over there, which I did not do, the next day I'm at a commissioner's hearing. They see the iPad in my purse. We're sitting there, all of a sudden 22 minutes they delayed the commissioner's hearing in order to go get a search warrant for the iPad they saw in my purse. Unwitting, people sitting there with me. We waited, then we said our grievances or our what we wanted to say to the commissioners, and then we left. We were followed 1 block away to Main Street Bagel, and that's when all hell broke loose. They came in, descended on it like it was a drug bust. Grab the iPad. I don't know what's happening. I grab it back. And then they totally caught me by surprise. And so, yes, I agree. I didn't react normally or because this was not a normal situation. But during that commissioner's hearing, and we've had this enhanced and we can hear it, during the time they took this break, Janet Rowland bends down and covers the microphone like this and says she won't want to come back here after this. And Cody Davis, that's sitting right back here, said, then you can hear it if you play back the recording, sacrificial lamb. He called me a sacrificial lamb. Cody Davis said $1.4 million. He talked about the salary for 16 months. I didn't want to be kicked out of my office. I came in every single day during COVID. Every single day. So did my chief deputy. We worked. We didn't stay home like a lot of people did enjoying a vacation. We worked, and I figured out ways to make it so we still provided those services to the citizens of Mesa County. As a matter of fact, when I first took office, they said it couldn't be done. I couldn't lower those 3.5-hour wait times. And I'm the type person that while somebody's saying something can't be done, I'm doing it. Like I said, my son says I fix things. Shortly after I was sworn in, 1 month later, I started opening the offices in Fruta for $150 a month. And then the Fruta office for 1/3 of what had been paid before. I'd been negotiating that for 10 months before I even took office, being a former real estate broker and also being in the construction business. My staff, when I got there, they were making $14.65 an hour, Judge. I don't know how anybody lives off of that these days. And they'd been passed over for promotions. And, so when Scott McGinnis talks about the big turnover, I had people that would cuss customers out when I first got there, and they had to go. I gave them a chance, and they had to go. One was a veteran, and so yes, there was some turnover, and then there were turnover that left because of the prior clerk. But when they say that I cost the county, when Cody Davis says I cost the county, no, I didn't cost the county. I saved the county money. Scott McGinnis talked a lot about deception and high expectations that the county has for clerks. Talked about breaking the contract and things like that. Janet Rowland, the commissioner, and I had already been talking about that since January, about getting out of the Dominion contract, which only had 1 more year. She even admitted in an email, and we talked about it, that maybe they could pay off the rest of the contract and go ahead and bring in clear ballot. I was ready just weeks before all hell broke loose for us to sign a contract with a different vendor. But it was interesting that, and Scott McGinnis said that I was not around, that I was AWOL, that I was on the run, is how he said it. No, I called in every single day to my managers on FaceTime, on our conference calling every single day, talking to them about the program for the day, what we were going to do today, asking how their subordinates were doing, were there any problems, and solutions to whatever was going on. I was present every single day.
Well, you weren't physically present.
I was present. Where I was, Your Honor, I was, after all this broke, which was by no fault of my own when it broke, because that was not my intent. My intent was just to come out quietly. Let's see if there's a there there. If there's a there there, well, then we do something about it. If there's not, then we keep reassuring the people. I didn't believe there was fraud here, and I took people on tours of the office to reassure
So you
them.
weren't physically present.
I had been no. I was.
And then when did you come back to be physically present to do the job you were elected to?
Let me explain that.
No, I just want you to answer the question.
Okay, I was flown from North Dakota or South Dakota to Texas.
I'm not asking where you went or where you were. You physically weren't present.
One
when
month.
You were
4
gone.
weeks. 4 weeks.
You were gone for 4 weeks.
But I was present every day. How did people exist during COVID, Your Honor? They didn't go into the offices every day. I did. They did it by video conferencing. That's how I was running my office, and that's perfectly acceptable. So I was flown to Texas for my safety. 1 week later, my hotel room was physically breached. It was broken into. After that time, I had 24/7 armed security. I was in a hotel room. The door across from me was propped open, and I had 24/7 armed security until the first report came out. When I brought the first report, September 16th, I believe it was, 16th or 17th, it might have been 17th, immediately we took 3 reports to the commissioners and 1 report to the DA. They did nothing. They did nothing. And while I was gone, there was people coming in trying to present evidence of what was being found. But all they wanted to know was, where's Tina Peters? All they wanted to know, they didn't want to know anything. And I saw Merrick Garland on, because I was tuned in. I was tuned in on my security, my security officer's computer. And I could see who was there, CNN, and that was an open records violation law. That was the Sunshine Law violation. All the public should have been able to see that, but that's a whole nother story, and I won't go there.
What?
When commissioners are meeting together, it's supposed to be an open meeting. This was a closed meeting, but there were other people there.
Merrick Garland was at a commissioners meeting?
No, on this Zoom meeting. I know it's hard to believe that this has gotten the attention across this nation because of what we've discovered. So Scott McGinnis said that they have not seen one fraudulent vote. But I would argue with that, because just because you don't acknowledge and you're blind to the truth, it doesn't mean that the truth is not there. Can you hand me that?
Do you deny that the hand count?
I'll get to that.
No,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just wondering. Do
No,
you
I'll
deny
deny. I'll get to that.
Sure, I'm interested to hear.
So, Your Honor, on September 17th, well, this is dated 15th of September, I took one of these copies to every commissioner and to the DA. They did nothing. There is expert reports. There were 29,000 election records that you can see on here in orange that were deleted from the people's Mesa County election system when they compared the first image that was taken and the second image. Gone, deleted. The only record we have is the record that I have. So you wonder why, when Scott McGinnis says that there's never been any fraudulent vote found. It's because they replaced the machines. They took the evidence out of Mesa County Dominion voting system and put new machines. And you know what I told the candidates that year? I said they were running, a lot of good candidates were running for school board. I said, you don't have to worry about this election. They are not going to cheat during this election. So all that hand counting, all that stuff, I knew they weren't going to cheat. But we have the evidence that they did. Here's the other thing. February 28th, 2022, brought another report. You know what this report showed? There were 36 wireless devices. So when you hear Dr. Frank talk about wireless devices in these machines, they're there. As a matter of fact, now they admit that there's wireless devices. And Matt Crane with the Colorado County Clerks Association and the Secretary of State just says, well, just turn them off. I was never taught, none of the other clerks, I'm sure Dallas Schroeder can testify, were never told to turn off, because these machines cannot be certified if they have wireless devices inside or have the capability. And then report number 3 came out after I was indicted, March 19th. Oh, by the way, back up, November, after I brought this report out, I was raided on November 16th by the FBI. November 17th, an attorney that is well known to the DA went into the nursing home and had my husband, who was a veteran with Parkinson's, sign a divorce decree. Not only did that take my husband, it took all my VA benefits. I found out a month later, 1 month before we would have been married 35 years, Your Honor. I had taken care of that man for 35 years, and I actually went to save him, which I'll show you in just a moment. So report number 3 came out. You asked if there was, probably none of these people have even read these reports that I gave them. So report number 3, when that ballot goes in to the tabulation machine, we've already proven it in report number 3. There's a second database that's created. So there's an image. So when they say, well, we'll just count the images. Don't worry about the paper ballots. We'll just count the images. After ballots go in, there's a second fraudulent database that's created, and it's all documented in here. There's an image taken of that ballot, then the ballot is changed, and we know it's been changed because it's lacking the .sha file, and it goes through adjudication differently, like it's a completely different ballot. This is what report number 3 is. So when you ask, were there any fraudulent votes, they haven't read it, they don't know. All right, I'm going to move along.
Votes, ma'am.
Sorry?
I'm not going to let you
Okay,
go
that's
on
fine.
about things that are completely irrelevant to the sentence.
This is irrelevant.
No, it's not. I've let you go on enough about this, but the votes are the votes. You still didn't answer the question. If this is my ballot and I put it in the machine, whatever it tabulates is whatever it tabulates.
No, it doesn't. It changes.
You're not letting me finish.
Okay,
whatever
please.
it tabulates is whatever it tabulates. My hand vote, my ballot remains the same. They counted those ballots. Did they not?
I understand what you're saying, Your Honor.
Did they count the ballots?
No, the ballot images were changed, and that's what the total shows. Okay, I'll move off of this because I can see that I would encourage to read the report number 3.
I've read them, ma'am.
You've read all of them?
I've read those reports. They were given to me at some point, I believe.
Good, good. Well, so you know what I'm saying is true. All right, let me move on. It's not funny. My life is on the line here, Your Honor.
No, you're the one who's making this allegation that, one,
It's
I think
not
it's
an
funny,
allegation.
and 2, that I know it's true. You're saying that as if I believe you, and I did not say that.
Okay.
That is
All
why
right.
I made the sound, because it's insulting to me for you to just put that in a record in front of all of these people that I believe something to be true.
Okay, and I apologize for that, Your Honor. That wasn't my intent. I do apologize for that. It gets a little fiery when your life is on the line, and I apologize. But I told the candidates they didn't have anything to fear because they had brand new machines that they'd taken out the bad ones, as the clerk alluded to. The truth does matter, you know. The fact that Gerald Wood lied about his part in this is unforgivable. Cody Davis calling me a sacrificial lamb, and then what happened next, and we'll show that in just a moment. But you know, Matt Crane's wife has worked for the voting system for 2 decades. Did you know that? Not many people know that she's worked for Dominion for 2 decades. So when he gets defensive about the voting machines, there's a reason. All right, let's go on to, so they kept my iPad. Judge, I'm an honest person. I made a promise to conceal Conan's identity, yes, but I'm an honest person. And I have 50 letters here that prove from people that say, and we had many more letters, but these are 50 letters here from people that say I'm honest, plus the 5 that are in the pre-sentence investigation report. The first letter is from one of my doctors, Scott Rollins. Can you pull that up? Okay. I'll keep going while he pulls
And
this
I've
up.
read I have read the letter. I've read all of the letters.
Okay.
But yes, you can
Just
certainly reference them if you'd like.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you reading the letters. Can you get it? Okay. 50 letters here, plus the 5 that are in the pre-sentence investigation report. The first letter is from one of my doctors, Scott Rollins. I have health problems that would not be treatable in the Department of Corrections. First of all, I need a magnetic mattress. I've been on that since 1995. I was in 2 rear-end collisions in 84 and 2010. It was pretty severe. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit, and chronic fatigue as a result, and I had to stop working for the airlines in 1995. I was up all night because I was in bed all day. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't control these symptoms until I got, believe it or not, a magnetic mattress of which I still sleep on. I will not have that at the Department of Corrections. Also, I had lung cancer and had surgery in 2016, 1 year before I ran for office and 1 year before my son died. They took out 1/3 of my right lung, and as a result, I get short of breath. So I can't do a lot of strenuous physical activity. Okay. My first attorneys asked me to take a polygraph as to why I created an image of the Mesa County server. And I said it was to preserve election records. And the polygraph showed that's true. Page 2, please. If you've never been through a polygraph, it's a pretty strenuous test. Keep going. I know it's inadmissible. We're not in court right now. We're at my sentencing. Thank you for that, DA. Were you truthful? Wait, stop, go down. Were you truthful? Keep going, please. Were you truthful when you told me you had the voting equipment data imaged because of obligation to preserve unaltered data? Answer, yes. Were you truthful when you told me you had voter equipment data imaged solely to uphold your obligation to preserve unaltered data? Yes. It was shown that I told the truth in every question they asked me. The government has accused me of profiting by them prosecuting me because they said I got free plane rides on Mike Lindell's plane and other bennies. But I reimbursed Mike Lindell for every plane ride I took on Mike Lindell's plane, and here's proof of it. And you can go down, show those. Okay. This right here, let's go back to when they came down on me for the iPad this is my wrist. Yes, Main Street Bagels. This is a picture of my left wrist, which happened when the officer who arrested me on February 8th, 2022, made the handcuffs too tight. And they also accused me of kicking a cop, which I didn't do because when they put the cuffs on too tight, they pulled me sideways on my left wrist and my right leg came up. And I've done this with numerous people to show them exactly how that's possible. And I'm going to just show you now. funny? Did you hear that back there?
I didn't,
Okay.
but I don't
Somebody's
doubt
back
that.
there laughing because I'm, okay.
I'll take your word for it.
Thank you.
And I will admonish that, as I've done it before for everyone. But
Thank you,
I'm
I
just trying
appreciate that.
to get through this, so go ahead, in terms of
This is
everyone
me.
remaining calm.
This is me and my mom 2 years ago. She's now 95. And lives in Virginia, and she needs me emotionally. And I want to be near her emotionally. And I talk to her and visit her. The last time I saw her was on Mother's Day. I arranged with the court to be able to go there. So that's another reason I would ask for probation, so I can be with my mom. She had a heart attack recently and has 3 aneurysms because the doctor says because of all the stress this is causing her. Here's my dad and me, who died the day I was in jail, in the Mesa County Jail in the sheriff's office here. I found out the next day. I didn't get to be the one that said goodbye like the other people in my family. I found out the next day before court where the prosecution asked for a $500,000 cash bond. I don't even know murderers and drug dealers like the one that the DA prosecuted, that he gave probation with 26 pounds of fentanyl. And the reason I know that the DA prosecuted a man with 26 pounds of fentanyl, because my attorney at the time was representing both of us. That man got off on probation, and I have had to pay the price. For what? Influencing a public servant? Is that really that bad that it deserves me to be incarcerated? This is my late son, Remington Jordan Peters, walking off as he graduated as a Navy SEAL. I tragically lost him 9 years later at 27 years old while I was running for office of the clerk and recorder because I wanted to make a difference. I'm what any mother or father never wants to be in that club. That's okay, just stay on the picture above. A Gold Star mom. I didn't even know what a Gold Star mom was until I became one. On November 2nd, 2021, I got an email from Zach Reams, and Mr. Reams explained he was resigning as the lawyer of me and my husband because the DA was investigating whether I had abused the power of attorney that I had for my husband, Tom. I had not abused that power of attorney. I always only did what my husband asked me to do. I would take my husband after in 2021 that I could no longer lift him and take care of him because he would fall a lot. He went into the La Villa Grande, and that's where that vile man, attorney, went in and had him sign a divorce decree, took him to Wells Fargo, and had my husband draw out $4,000 to pay the attorney that he signed something into. He told me the day after I was raided by the FBI, he said, I think I did something wrong. And I said, honey, what do you think you did? He said, I don't know, but it was not good. He said, I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, call our attorneys. He didn't even know what he signed. The investigation, though, came to nothing. I loved my husband. I was married for 35 years and would never have done any harm to him. However, like I said, a lawyer named Drew Moore, who I understand is a friend of the district attorney, converted our decree of legal separation to a divorce, and my husband had never had any dealings with Drew Moore prior to that. I lost my VA benefits and my husband. After the divorce, the next one, my husband's brother, who him and his sister had never come to see us, enticed him to come live in Arkansas, and they got a power of attorney in October, and they wouldn't let me see my husband. This is a revocation of the power of attorney that I was able to get. They moved him out of the VA living facility to Arkansas, and then when he was in Arkansas, he wasn't cared for. And I had told him that too much medication, he hallucinates, and too little, he falls. So then they put him in a nursing home. Here's a picture of me and Tom when 3 months before before he was taken away from me. Now this picture right here is us at the ale house. I would take him out, we would go have dinner, have a beer, go have ice cream, go visit Christine Cherveris that you've already heard speak, and other friends, take him up to the property, wherever. We would have date night and things like that. This is my husband when I found him. A 280-pound man, barely 90 pounds, at the hands of the people who took him. Wait, hang on. He was severely dehydrated. They would put a cup on the thing, but he couldn't reach it. He had no food. This is the way I found him. And I just laid my head on his chest and I sobbed. I said, honey, I never left you. They took you from me. I was busy the next 3.5 days feeding him and giving him water. And the next picture is after 3.5 days of just giving him water and food. And he's holding onto my arm, and there's a little smile there, you can see him. We were reunited again. The police came once the brother found out that I was there because they believed this stuff, that 700 above the fold articles that the Daily Sentinel has put out to defame me and lie about me. And I've taken it and taken it. The police were called. They took him out. A month later, he was dead. Your Honor, I'm not a criminal. I've lived my life with honor and honesty. I took care of my husband faithfully even after he got sick in 2010. It took me 6 years to get him 100% disability, which did pay for the VA's care of him, which I'm very grateful. But I'm not a criminal, and I don't deserve to go into a prison where other people have committed heinous crimes. The only crime that I did, and some people have said I'm not remorseful. Yes, I'm remorseful. Yes, sir, I really am. I never expected that just doing an image which was completely legal before and after the trusted build would have landed me here. I thought it was going to come out quietly. I could look and see, okay, is there any proof? Is there anything here? I could talk to the constituents and say, listen, we've done an investigation. Everything is good. This is the gold standard, which I'd believed before. I've never done anything with malice to break the law. I wanted to serve the people in Mesa County. And I'll just tell you this. With my other attorneys, there was an attorney getting me ready for trial, and he was trying to be the prosecutor, play that role to toughen me up. And he said to me, he kept trying to provoke me. And he says, Tina, I can't, and that's why I should have testified, probably, but he said, Tina, I can't get to you. And I said, I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you how you can get to me. Talk about the citizens of Mesa County. Talk about the people that you served. I said, that's what'll do it. And as I'm telling him, I'm starting to cry. I really do love these people, and whether they recognize it or not, I did my best to serve this county. And I hope that you'll find it in your heart to not sentence me to, and I haven't cried in front of these people because I don't want them to get the impression that they were getting to me. But I don't deserve to be in prison. I can do a lot more good out helping people, which is what I'm good at doing. If you tell me I cannot talk about the elections anymore, I won't talk about the elections anymore. I've done, I've done my job here. If you say that, if you allow me to go to Yuba City and live quietly helping with trafficked women and children, I would like to do that. I didn't need to be in the center of attention. And it's interesting, when I took the job as clerk and recorder, the staff would come to me and they say, the press is outside. They want to talk to the clerk. And I said, don't we have somebody on staff that can do that kind of thing? And they said, no, they want to talk to the clerk. I had to tape a little piece of paper up on the tripod with bullet points because I wasn't used to being in front of a camera. I don't like being the center of attention. I never have. But this has uprooted my life. And for that, I'm sorry. I really am remorseful that it came out that way. And I ask you for leniency and probation. I check all the boxes on the leniency. Don't have drug problems, don't have alcohol problems. I don't know if you've ever seen as clean a past as I have or present. But I did not do it. I did not do it, Your Honor, to disrespect the court or the law.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I do want to take just a few minutes to collect my thoughts. When I say a few minutes, 5 to 10, so I'll reconvene before the noon hour, certainly probably closer to 11:55 or so. Thank you.
This is what I said, if you want to put it in your
All right, we're here today for sentencing in Ms. Peters' case. Before I get into my comments, I'll enter judgment of conviction consistent with the jury's verdicts as to counts 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. As it relates to fines, fees, and costs, a $2,000 fine will be ordered as to counts 1, 2, 4, 6. As to counts 8, 8. The maximum fine will be imposed. Counts 9 and 10, $1,000 fines will be imposed. You retain the right to ask me to reconsider any sentence I impose under Rule 35B. You have the right to appeal any sentence I impose if you want to end the judgments of conviction. If you wish to do that, you need to do it within 49 days of today's date. The protection orders will remain in place during the life of this sentence. Conditions 6 and 7 are vacated. However, you can ask your lawyer what that means. If you are ever sentenced or today sentenced to the Department of Corrections, then I'm required to inform you that the time I actually impose or that may be imposed is not the amount of time you are likely to serve. It can be and very likely will be reduced by your accrual of good time and earned time credits within the department, meaning that the better you do in prison, the more programming you take advantage of, the sooner you'll be released. I want to circle back to the request from earlier today in terms of the motion for a new trial based on a Brady violation. To the extent I needed to make findings on that today, I'll note that 1, the motion could have been filed weeks ago. 2, the information generally was known to the defense prior to trial, perhaps not the specifics, but enough to have at least mustered some questioning of witnesses at trial. And 3, that a Brady violation is one that generally involves, almost exclusively involves, the withholding of exculpatory evidence that may be used by the defendant in a case. When looking at such a violation, the court looks at that type of evidence with through the lens of a defense attorney, not through a prosecutor, such that it's not the prosecutor's job to determine what is or isn't exculpatory. It's the defendant's job to make those decisions. Here, the argument is that back on, I believe, June 25th, Ms. Peters went to the clerk and recorder's not office, but where the ballot box is located some distance, I don't know if it's 100 feet or not, away from the actual physical office. She went there with at least one camera person. It looks like maybe someone else was also there with her. Apparently she was voting. She had some conversations, according to the affidavit that's been drafted for her arrest in that case, with election officials who would be employees of the clerk and recorder's office, which she was not allowed to have conversations with. Her presence was noted by Ms. Bance, one of the witnesses in this case, who alerted law enforcement, who then did the investigation that resulted in everything I just said being uncovered and ultimately that warrant being drafted. The defense made some requests for that information. Once through the police department, it was denied. According to the defendant, because it was an ongoing investigation, the DA said that they didn't have anything, if I'm not mistaken, but that they would turn it over later when they got it. They didn't do so. Looks like the warrant was drafted well after the trial occurred. So it is well settled that for the purposes of discovery, evidence that could be used to impeach a witness, motivations, the like, would fall under a Brady type of requirement to be disclosed. But as I said earlier, there's quite literally nothing that's been provided to me that suggests anything in this arrest warrant or that what Ms. Bance said, who was an important witness to the prosecution, would be construed objectively or even subjectively through the lens of a defense attorney as favorable or exculpatory to the defendant, particularly where there's video footage of the interaction that occurred between the defendant and the individuals who may have been employees of the clerk and recorder's office. So Ms. Bance's mere reporting of the same to law enforcement is what it is, and certainly in any event, to the extent there was exculpatory value to it, as the case law says, it was incredibly minimal and could not undermine the confidence in the verdict. I'll nevertheless let the people respond to it, and to the extent I might not be divested of jurisdiction to consider it, hold a hearing on the same if I find one is warranted after further briefing. I make that record, just to close that loop for the purposes of any appeal issue that might come up in the future. The purposes of sentencing have been alluded to, particularly by the prosecution. I'm not going to repeat them all, but I say generally the same thing. That is, the purposes are statutory, and they include, but are not limited to, promoting the acceptance of responsibility. That doesn't mean that a defendant has to take responsibility. To the contrary, Ms. Peters has exercised her right to a jury trial. She's exercised her right to hold the people to their burden, and such cannot and will not be used by this court as a means by which, or justification by which, to punish her, but rather the sentence itself is to promote the responsibility acceptance, not to ensure that someone takes responsibility, however, once they've chosen to exercise their right to go to trial. I consider deterrence in sentencing, that is, both general and specific, that the sentence I impose must deter Ms. Peters from engaging in similar conduct in the future, but it also must deter others generally from engaging in this type of conduct. I consider rehabilitation where appropriate. I consider punishment where appropriate. I also must ensure that the sentences I impose are consistent among offenders similarly situated, but I must also impose a sentence that is designed to meet Ms. Peters' unique needs. Here, the defense has, and Ms. Peters in particular, has remained quite defiant, which is her right, but certainly not helpful for her lot today. And in arguing why I should impose a particular sentence, she tells me about her ailments, her loss, her struggles in life. But in reality, for those of you who may have been here earlier this morning and seen some of the folks who've occupied that chair before Ms. Peters, there could be not much in the way of a comparison in terms of the type of sympathy one would extend to Ms. Peters. Those folks didn't have 4 lawyers representing them. They didn't have a team of assistants helping them. They're not getting rides in private jets all over the country. No, the people who sit in that chair suffer, generally speaking, immeasurable trauma in life, struggle mightily with alcohol abuse, substance abuse, mental health struggles, family loss. They come from broken homes. The cards they were dealt were never the cards that you were dealt, Ms. Peters. So when I hear you discuss your husband, who sadly passed away recently, your family struggles, and your son, who served our country admirably and made the ultimate sacrifice, I consider it. And I note too that he honored his oath to the country, something that is not lost on me when considering the circumstances under which you find yourself here. Your age, limited criminal history, and the like are certainly somewhat mitigating. Your ties to the community are what they are, but your reputation at this point is poor because of what you've done here and after. Your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen. You don't have those histories of drug and alcohol abuse. There's no lifetime of trauma, not even close to the type of mitigating circumstances I would see from many folks who sit in that chair. No, to the contrary, Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. And you use that privilege to obtain power, a following, and fame. And to be sure, there's no doubt in my mind that it's exactly what you wanted, and it defies all sense of common sense to believe when you suggested to me a few moments ago that you didn't want this attention. No, you crave it, ma'am. And there is no one in this courtroom who would consider that to be anything other than the absolute truth. But to get to the point of what it is that you did here, it's my impression distinctly that you never took your job of clerking particularly seriously. You didn't complete the certification. One scandal after another followed you in your time as the clerk. And ultimately, it was a belief that the echo chamber in which you live couldn't be wrong, among other things, that led you to do what you did here. This thought process, unfortunately, seems to consume so many in our country, regardless of race, gender, political affiliation, or the like, that what it is we hear and think can't possibly be wrong. There are many things in my mind that are crystal clear about this case. You are no hero, you abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. In your world, it's all about you. But at bottom, this case was about your corrupt conduct and how no one is above the law. No one in this country has absolute power. Your position as a clerk and recorder, a constitutional position, does not provide you with a means by which to do your own investigation, to not listen to the judiciary, to not listen to the executives higher than you, to not listen to the legislature who sets the law as it may be. This is nonsense. Our system of government can't function when people in government think that somehow, some way, the power they've been given is absolute in all respects, and that's where you fell. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement, and you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues when you were a clerk and recorder who weren't lockstep in your beliefs. Period. Indeed, just weeks before trial, you were apparently doing what I mentioned earlier, that is, over at the clerk and recorder's office where you're not supposed to be, violating the protection order by speaking to employees of that entity with your camera crew in tow. You have no qualms with violating the court's orders because you're innocent, because you didn't do anything wrong. You were just doing your job. You have no problem trying to kick an officer. Your explanation about what happened is preposterous. It's on video. You have no problem lying to officers. It's happened multiple times. They're recorded conversations. It's just more lies. No objective person believes them. No, at the end of the day, you cared about the jets, the podcasts, and the people fawning over you. You abdicated your position as a servant to the Constitution, and you chose you over all else. Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie as easy it is for you to breathe. You betrayed your oath for no one other than you. And this is what makes Ms. Peters such a danger to our community. It's the position she held that has provided her the pulpit from which she can preach these lies. The undermining of our democratic process, the undermining of the belief and confidence in our election systems. It's not about questioning it. No one says you can't question, you can't ask. It's completely different. And if you don't understand that distinction, then there's nothing I can say or do here today that will change your mind. So the damage that is caused and continue to be caused is just as bad, if not worse, than the physical violence that this court sees on an all too regular basis. And it's particularly damaging when those words come from someone who holds a position of influence like you. Every effort to undermine the integrity of our elections and public's trust in our institutions has been made by you. You've done it from that lectern the voting public provided you with. Everything you've done has been done to retain control, influence. The damage is immeasurable. And every time it gets refuted, every time it's shown to be false, just another tale is weaved. So I'll begin by saying I've considered all of those purposes of staying of an execution of a sentence. I've mentioned all of them here generally in my comments already, and I find that a stay of any sentence I impose would be wholly unwarranted. All cases have a possibility of reversal on appeal, no doubt. I'm at peace with all of the decisions I've made here. If anything, I gave you and your counsel far too much leeway at times, but the rulings I made came after much consideration, incredible amounts of internal debate, and I trust in accordance with the applicable law. I consider the sentence here, in this case, what are available to me. Probation. Community corrections wasn't requested, but it wouldn't be an option in any event, and an incarcerative sentence to the Department of Corrections. Probation's focus is rehabilitation. That is, for folks who have minimal criminal histories, low LSI scores like you, Ms. Peters, but where punishment isn't really on the table. It's about putting someone back in the community who's not a risk and giving them a chance to correct those things that brought them before me in the first place. Community corrections, which again isn't available, but nevertheless I'll mention, is another option that I could still order. It's much more stringent than probation, but it's not prison. And it's for folks who have even higher needs. Again, drug addicts, alcohol abusers, and the like. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us. Whether it be by the pen or the sword or the word of the mouth. Prison is where folks go, where punishment is what we're focused on, because the crime committed is so significant that anything less would unduly mitigate the seriousness of the same. I mentioned before there are no mental health concerns. There's no good reason why you're here, Ms. Peters, other than these are all the active decisions that you made that cost our county significantly, but also more importantly, cost you greatly, Mr. Wood, all the members of the county who worked and trusted you when you asked them to do things that they did on your behalf as part of your lies. The expense, the toll is immeasurable. So putting you on probation when you have zero needs that would be met by probation is the very definition of unduly depreciating the significance of what it is that you've done here, the harm that you've caused our community and continue to cause. Community corrections is the same, so prison is the only place that duly meets the purposes of sentencing in this matter. And therefore the sentence and judgment of the court is as follows. As to counts 1 and 4, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years in the Department of Corrections. Those sentences will be concurrent to each other. As to count 2, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years consecutive to counts 1 and 4. As it relates to the misdemeanor charges, count 8 is 120 days in the Mesa County Detention Facility, concurrent to count 9 and 10, which will be 6 months in the Mesa County Detention Facility, consecutive to the prison sentence. The reason those sentences are consecutive is because those sentences are, as the prosecution stated, directly related to what it is that you did here in our community, the damage you caused this community, the breach of your oath to the electorate in Mesa County. Your sentence will be followed by 3 years of parole. You have 2 days of pre-sentence confinement credit. Anything I missed? Anything else we need to address?
Judge, I think you missed a sentencing on count 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Count 6 is criminal impersonation. That's also consecutive. That's 15 months to the Department of Corrections.
And the cost
So it's 8.5 years total, plus the 6 months for a total of 9 years of incarceration.
And I think the only other thing is the cost of prosecution, Your Honor.
Is there an objection to the cost of prosecution, Mr. Case? We could set it for hearing if you need to.
Well,
If you need to have time to respond to it, I can give you that as well.
yeah, we do, because we don't understand how that was calculated.
Very well. I'll give you 21 days to file an objection to the cost of prosecution. You can consult that with the prosecutor If there's an objection, we'll set it for a hearing. Nothing else. Mr. Case, anything else?
Yes, Your Honor, we have a motion previously filed for a stay, which I believe,
I just denied that.
well, it's pursuant to Rule 8.1.
You want her to remain, I already told you in my written order what that pertains to. You want her to, she's gonna remain in the MCDF for the next 6 months, less good time and earned time already. Your motion, that rule you're citing to isn't a stay of the sentence per se. It allows her to stay in the local jail for up to 60 days. And I'm happy to grant that, but she's already gonna be doing it because they're gonna take her, I think they're gonna take her to, they're gonna keep her here and then they're gonna take her to prison.
Well, we filed our consent of surety to bond on appeal.
Right.
And we're asking simply that you allow her to remain under the conditions of that bond until we can get the Court of Appeals to rule on whether she should have bond during the appeal.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one other thing, and that is, I need to file an exhibit that I did not previously provide because it's under seal from the DC court. It's an October 4th internal email from Dominion. It relates to Mr. Frontera. So I wanted to advise the court that I'll be filing that under seal to complete the record.
Okay.
And that it should be kept under seal. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we're adjourned.